Greetings hobbyists, this is Autosaving, and in this video I'm not actually going to do a tutorial but instead show you a couple of quick tips that hopefully will reduce your Blender rage or frustration. So the first of these tips is just trying to save some time and something that gets really frustrating at Blender. So on the screen you can see what happens when you come into Blender. I've got rid of the splash screen by clicking off of it and we've got our typical Blender setup. But this is not what I want when I get into Blender. I don't like this, and in fact for me this isn't what I have when I go into Blender. I have this. So here you can see the splash screen and I click off of it and it's got the setup that I like at my beginning screen, and this is really easy to set up so that you can have your screen set up exactly the way you want it. To do this, the first thing you need to do is set up the scene like you want it. I've got rid of the camera, I've got rid of the light, I've changed my settings over here to have my viewport on matte cap with this red shading, I've got cavity on, and I've got over here my face orientation set on, and I don't have the floor because I don't like that. You can also change this object. I've kept it as the default cube just because I like having something there to start working on, and a lot of the time I start with a cube, but I know some people prefer to have an armature of a human that's 6mm or 28mm tall because that's the scale they typically work out, or even both, and they just delete one out. So how do you get this as your default? It's actually really easy. All you do is File, Defaults, and if you click this Save Startup file, what that will do is change it so that anything you've got in this startup screen is exactly what you'll come into Blender with. So you just click that, and if you ever want to go back to what Blender normally starts up in, you can just click this Load Factory Settings, but do be warned that this also sets the preferences back to the beginning setup for what Blender's like, so you won't have all those add-ons. So that should save you some time. Now the second one, I'm going to go into a file that I've used previously and show you the second thing, which is actually what got me on this video, as it's something that happened recently. So when working on my most recent tutorial, looking at how to make scatter and how to make rubble from recognizable objects that you've used cell fracture to break down, I'd been working on this for about 20 minutes and then Blender crashed, which is not unknown to happen. I will say it seems to be happening a lot less in Blender 3. And having not saved it recently, this would be the point where I'd be ripping my hair out, except for Blender has an autosave function, which some people aren't aware of. Now just to demonstrate this, I'm going to bring in a cube just so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to make that a bit bigger and I'm going to move that there. And just be aware that obviously I haven't saved this file. So to set up this function, all you do is go to Edit, Preferences, and then you come to the Save and Load settings, and you click or make sure that this box is ticked on. And this will mean that Blender is auto-saving your file to a temporary backup at a designated time shown by this timer. I think as the default this is set up as 2 minutes. You can set it down to anything I believe as low as 1. I've got mine set as 4. Now make sure that you've saved it or you've got autosave preferences on, and as soon as you close this, that's going to be functioning. Now I've just waited a bit of time, a bit over 4 minutes, so I can demonstrate this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to close Blender, essentially as if Blender had crashed, and then we'll go back into Blender and we'll have a look at how to get to this temporary saved file. So let's close that and very specifically click Don't Save. So I've reopened Blender, I'm on the splash screen, and I could click Recover Last Session. The other thing you can do is File, and then Recover, and then you can either recover the last session. If I click that, you can see my cube that was never saved as being part of the file is now there, or when you do this, you could go to Recover and Autosave, and it's got all of your autosave with the time and date stamp. So hopefully, no more rage when Blender crashes because you've got that save file. It doesn't matter that you forgot to save it for the last 20 or 30 minutes. Now one final thing and a bit of a bonus tip for those of you that have stuck around to the end of the video. I imagine a couple of you are thinking, why the hell would you keep your autosave timer as being 4 minutes? Surely 1 is better. And you know what, for most people that's probably true, but I actually quite like having a longer autosave timer. It means I can use this like an additional saved file, because normally when I'm working I can generally go back about 2 to 3 minutes just clicking undo, and what this means is that actually I've got a little bit further back in time to go. If I maybe make a mistake, if I can't undo back far enough, I can just close the file and then reopen this temporary file, and it's taken me a little bit further back. Now with that, a couple of you might also be asking, well, how can you undo so far back that it's going to be a good 2 or 3 minutes? Well, you can actually undo a lot more than the Blender system normally lets you. If you go to System in your Blender Preferences, there is a section that says Undo Steps, and normally this is a relatively small number. I can't remember what it normally is, but you can up this to, I believe, 256 is the maximum. Now do note this can slow your computer slightly down because it's obviously storing a lot more, but the higher the number that is, the more undo steps you can go back, which means you can actually undo quite a lot. So having that really high is definitely useful. And a third final tip that hopefully will help reduce some of those Blender frustrations.